Hello everyone, welcome back to Stars and Bars, where we analyze your favorite artists' astrological charts and interpret how astrology plays out in their music, lyrics, and career. I'm Aubrey, and if you're new here and that sounds interesting to you, feel free to subscribe so you never miss a video, and let me know in the comments who you want to learn about next. Today we'll be discussing certainly the youngest artist I've covered so far, and yet in some ways she is also one of the most successful. She is known the world over for her unique style, her hauntingly beautiful voice, and the speed at which she elevated from obscurity to cult fame to mainstream recognition as a household name. Her debut album debuted at #1 and was the best performing album of 2019 in the US. In her brief mainstream career, she has already collected 5 Grammys, as well as 2 AMAs, 2 Guinness World Records, and much more. She's also already RIAA's #23 biggest artist of the digital singles era. Today, we are talking about Billie Eilish. Here is Billie Eilish's chart. She is a Sagittarius sun with an Aquarius moon and a Pisces rising. Her Mercury is in Capricorn, her Venus joins her sun in Sagittarius, and her Mars joins her rising in Pisces. Her dominant sign is Sagittarius, her dominant planet is Venus, and her dominant element is fire. So looking at this chart, it's pretty well-rounded. No element or quality really is left out here. We have at least one important personal inner placement in each element, so fire, water, earth, and air, and each quality, so cardinal, mutable, and fixed. That said, she is fire dominant and mutable dominant, so those energies do make her more of a passionate and creative and adaptable person, and less on the side of rigidness or practicality. Our first trait in the bars for today is straightforwardness. Many placements in Billie's chart make her a blunt and straightforward person. Part of this is that she is Sagittarius dominant, like we talked about earlier. Sagittarius is a hasty fire sign, known for speaking first and thinking eventually. Besides that Sagittarian influence, Billie also has a couple of Mars aspects that contribute to this trait. Mars is the planet of aggression, assertiveness, and energy output, and it forms some harmonious aspects with both Mercury and Jupiter in Billie's chart. First, we'll talk about the Mars sextile Mercury aspect. So a sextile is a harmonious aspect that occurs when 2 planets are approximately 60 degrees away from each other on the zodiac wheel. Mars ruling aggression and Mercury ruling communication, so speech and writing, having a harmonious relationship with one another gives the person the ability to be very forthcoming about their feelings or their thoughts, and to speak their mind unafraid of disagreements or criticism. This is very true of Billie. As a young artist, she really doesn't have to speak on some of the issues that she chooses to use her platform to speak on. Some of these things include racism, international affairs, politics, and the inappropriate sexualization and judgment of young artists like herself based on their clothing choices, lyrics, and so on. She really doesn't have to talk about these things. She really could stay back in her superstardom and her fame and her youth and just not address these things, but she always does. She makes sure to use her voice to uplift the voices of people that are struggling, and she's very opinionated and progressive and loud. Even though realistically, when you're such a huge star like Billie is, you're bound to lose some of your following when you align yourself with some of these ideals. She also has a Mars trine Jupiter aspect. The trine is another harmonious aspect similar to the sextile, and it occurs when 2 planets are approximately 120 degrees away from each other. Jupiter is an expanding planet, and like we talked about earlier, Mars is the planet of aggression. So having this expansiveness and aggression in a positive relationship with one another just further expands Billie's bluntness. Moving on to trait 2, we have romantic idealism. This comes from a Sagittarius placement as well, but a much more specific one. Here we're going to talk about her Sagittarius Venus in the 9th house. Venus shows what type of lover you are. It speaks to your romantic interests. Traits of Venus in Sagittarius include value on independence and not being very quick to fall head over heels. These traits work hand in hand, reflecting idealism, which is the tendency to chase ideals, even when they are perhaps unrealistic. Sagittarius knows their worth and what they want, and is not likely to settle for less if they ever get around to relinquishing enough time, energy, and freedom to settle at all. And the fact that her Sagittarius Venus is in the 9th house, which is ruled by Sagittarius, just further strengthens this romantic idealism within her. Our final trait in the bars for today is secretive darkness. So this is kind of a two-part trait that I'm known to do sometimes, but of course they play into each other. So Billie's signature dark, spooky vibe, I would say, comes from her 12th house stellium. Stellium is when we have 3 or 4 plus planets in the same sign or house. And it shows a part of the personality or of the chart that is very important, that continuously comes up as a main theme in the native's life. Billie has her moon and Uranus in Aquarius, as well as her Mars in Pisces in her 12th house of secrets, psychology, and unseen or hidden matters. Focusing on unseen matters like emotionality, psychology, and karma, even subconsciously, is part of what cultivates Billie's very 12th house, melancholy style of expression. So those are our traits in the bars for today. We first have her straightforwardness that comes from her Sagittarius dominance as well as her Mars aspects. We have romantic idealism that comes from her Sagittarius Venus in the 9th house. And we have her secretive darkness that comes from her 12th house stellium. But before we move on to the lyrics and the music, let's talk about Billie's career a little bit. I want to start off with the midheaven this time around. We always talk about the midheaven. It's extremely important for our purposes on the channel. The midheaven is the career angle. It is the cusp of the 10th house. Sorry if you've already heard that 1,000 times because you've watched my videos before, but if you haven't, now you know, if you didn't already. And Billie's midheaven joins her Sun, Venus, and Pluto in Sagittarius. This is fitting mostly for reasons we've been over already. She's blunt, idealistic, and clearly feels a moral obligation to speak out on what she believes. Other Sagittarian traits include adventurousness and charisma, both of which Billie shows lots from her music, to her visuals and promotion, to her interviews, to her personal style. I also want to discuss Billie's North Node in Gemini in the 4th house. The North Node shows someone's underlying purpose or goal for this lifetime. Gemini and its connected 3rd house are often associated with siblings, which makes a lot of sense since Gemini is the twins. And it is hardly an in-depth conversation about Billie if we don't also discuss her older brother, Phineas. Phineas, while an artist in his own right, is best known for his work alongside Billie. He has co-written and or produced on most, if not all, of Billie's music, so it's no doubt that the two are very close, and that Phineas is very important to Billie's career and life. Billie's North Node in Gemini shows that in some capacity, connecting closely with her brother is integral to her progress on her life's overall goal. Her North Node is also in the 4th house of home and family, further highlighting the importance of familial closeness in Billie's chart, career, and life. Next, I want to talk about another sextile aspect, but this one is the Venus sextile Uranus aspect in Billie's chart. Between artistic, beauty-focused Venus and progressive, revolutionary Uranus, a sextile can cause the native to be especially open-minded and progressive with regard to their self-worth and appearance. Billie is definitely known for her tendency to dress in baggy clothes with bright colors and flashy accessories. She has said that she dresses this way to avoid being body shamed, which is something that no young girl her age should ever have to worry about, but that is the world we live in. Anyways, this isn't necessarily progressive in itself, but recently Billie did post a video to social media wherein she dresses down to a tank top and verbally asks the reader why society places judgment on women for what they wear, but not on the people judging them for being judgmental. She essentially says that any preconceived notions about a woman's body or modesty truly reflect on the person passing judgment and not on the woman just being herself and living her life. This is just another hot button progressive topic that Billie feels passionate enough about to speak out on. So she knows that she dresses differently and that people notice, but it doesn't affect her self-worth. Another fashion-related Venus sextile Uranus trait that Billie possesses is the capacity to be a trendsetter. Videos like dressing like Billie Eilish for 24 hours or for a week, doing makeup like Billie Eilish, things like this are super popular YouTube titles, especially toward the beginning of her career when she was first starting to pop off. So that's like a direct example of how she's been a trendsetter, but even indirectly, I do feel like Billie's way of dressing has impacted fashion as a whole. I feel like women have always been, of course, able to wear baggy clothes and bright colors and you know, big chains and jewelry and things like this. But I do feel like she's normalized it now in the modern world, and I feel like since people started seeing Billie do it, they do it more. I'm not a fashion expert, so perhaps I'm completely wrong about that. But I do still feel like for girls her age, she's kind of broken down boundaries as far as how they're supposed to dress. Now, before we move on to the music, I want to talk about just one more placement, and that's because it's pretty rare. Billie has what is called a yod in her chart. A yod is 3 astral bodies, 2 of which are connected by a sextile or a 60-degree angle, like we talked about earlier, and the 3rd connected to both by quincunxes, which are 150-degree aspects. That's probably pretty confusing, so let's get you a visual. As you can see, we have an isosceles triangle with 2 planets connected by a sextile, which is the short line, and a 3rd, which is equal distance from both, opposite the sextile's midpoint, which is known as the boomerang point. It's pretty rare to have a yod because these planets or asteroids need to be very specifically placed. But what occurs in Billie's chart is even more rare than a traditional yod. In addition to her moon, Jupiter, and Pluto forming that yod, she also has her Mercury at that boomerang point we talked about earlier. This creates a kite-type shape and is very appropriately known as a boomerang yod or a yod kite. To give you an idea of just how rare it is to have a yod kite in your chart, according to German astrophysicist Peter Meyer, between 2007 and 2018, yod kites only occurred 11 times in that 12 years and only took up a total of about 40 days. So this is a very unique and uncommon placement. So now that we know what makes up a yod, as well as the more rare yod kite, what does this mean? So, first of all, to be completely transparent, yods are actually a little bit controversial in the astrology world. This is mainly because the quincunx, the 150-degree aspect that we talked about earlier, that forms the long lines of our isosceles triangle or kite in Billie's case, is considered a minor aspect. And because it's a minor aspect, a lot of astrologers just feel that it's simply not important enough of an aspect. The main reason for this is that in a quincunx, the two planets are approximately 5 signs away from each other, which mathematically causes them to not share an element, a quality, or a polarity. So they have nothing in common. They don't really have any common ground to work on, and these two signs have energies that just do not match up in any way with each other. Some people say that this makes it a useless aspect, but I personally think that it could be legitimate to not have anything in common. This could still be important. And in the case of the Yod Kite, I personally think that this is a rare enough placement and a relevant enough placement that it still matters. But I don't pretend to know everything about our mysterious world and universe, so I did want to share both sides. I think that that's important. All that to say, the Yod connects 3 very different energies within the native, highlighting areas of the personality that are incompatible with each other. This can, as expected, lead to a tension the native must overcome or a feeling of blockage, whether it be emotional, energetic, artistic, etc. Ultimately, evolution of the soul and self through overcoming internal struggles is what the Yod is all about. These struggles are said to originate at the boomerang point, even in a regular Yod. So having a planet on the boomerang point makes it easier for the native to understand and ultimately overcome these obstacles. It's a little early yet to determine how this plays out in Billie's life, but it is still interesting because it's very rare, and I will definitely be interested to see what we see out of her life moving forward with this very unique placement. Now, before we move all the way to part 2, I want to talk about albums like we always do. We've only got 2 works to really work with here. So this will be a quicker portion. The first one is the Don't Smile at Me EP from 2017. Billie was just 15 years old at this EP's release, and it only has about 8 tracks, depending on which press you're looking at. Sonically, this album is pretty soft. It's mostly ballad or acoustic songs with some ukulele, which I always feel is very Piscean in nature. So this relates to her Pisces rising and her Pisces Mars. Thematically, bad romance is huge, as well as self-reflection, which to me reflects her Aquarius moon, as Aquarius is a very detached and objective sign. We also get a taste of that 12th house darkness that Billie will eventually become known for. And then moving to Billie's debut album, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go, from 2019. This album is regarded as very dark and melancholy, but really it's pretty much equal parts dark and soft and sweet. This album does a great job at highlighting Billie's eccentric Aquarius moon and soft, even naive Pisces rising from the lyrics and the themes. Sonically, again, we have that Piscean ukulele, but we also have, of course, the spooky, dark Capricorn Mercury / Aquarius moon energy. And the duality that we see on this album is also very mutable and very Sagittarian and especially Pisces-like. In addition, I'll also cover any relevant singles or features that come up. All right, so before we start breaking down bars, I did want to hit you with an in before. Now, if you're looking at this and you're thinking, well, Aubrey, Phineas co-writes most of her music, right? So how much of this is a study of Billie and how much of this is a study of Phineas, or both? And looking at that, I'm only including songs that Billie is also credited on. So any songs, for example, Ocean Eyes or Watch, that Phineas wrote entirely and Billie is not credited as a writer on, I do not include here. And in addition to that, I don't think that Billie would co-sign anything that she didn't relate to or agree with. So besides the songs that are narratives and that tell a story that is not Billie's story, yeah, I don't think that she would endorse anything to be under her name that she didn't truly feel. So that's kind of how I'm looking at that one. But yeah, every song that we're covering has Billie also credited as a writer. We're not just looking at Phineas songs as well. Anyways, our first trait for the day is straightforwardness, and that comes from her Sagittarius dominance as well as her Mars aspects. Starting with the Don't Smile at Me EP, we're going to come out the gate with track 1, which is Copycat. Billie is very blunt with regard to her disdain for someone who copies her in this song. So Billie had clout to chase before many of us had even heard of clout chasing. The pre-chorus of this song says, "By the way, you've been uninvited, 'cause all you say are all the same things I did." And then the chorus says, "Copycat trying to cop my glamour. Why so sad, bunny? Can't have mine." So yeah, very straightforward about how she feels about the subject on this song. And she does break down this song on Genius as well and explains that it is exactly what it sounds like. Moving on to track 3, My Boy. Billie describes a relationship with someone who ain't shit, and she's not afraid to admit that he ain't shit. The chorus says, "My boy don't love me like he promised. My boy ain't a man and he sure as hell ain't honest." Describing how he treats her badly. Very straightforward, not at all worried about protecting this guy's reputation. And then track 8 is Hostage, which is a very straightforward love profession. The chorus says, "Let me crawl inside your veins. I'll build a wall and give you a ball and chain. You're all I wanted, just let me hold you like a hostage." So, yeah, very straightforward about our romantic feelings on this one. Between the EP and the album, there was a single that came out called Bitches Broken Hearts that I love, by the way. Love this song. The whole song is very blunt. On the chorus, she says, "You can pretend you don't miss me, you can pretend you don't care, all you want to do is kiss me, what a shame I'm not there." And then on verse 2, she says, "Everybody knows you and I are suicide and stolen art." So yeah, she knows that this relationship is not a healthy one. She's not really worried about it though. And yeah, she knows that this person should be more straightforward with her about how they feel. And then moving on to the album, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? It's a wordy one. Let's talk about track 2, the smash hit Bad Guy, which seems to be about a character or a dark side to Billie, with some very straightforward language. In the chorus, she says, "I'm that bad type, make your mama sad type, make your girlfriend mad type, might seduce your dad type." So you've probably heard that before. And then on the bridge, she says, "I like when you get mad. I guess I'm pretty glad that you're alone. You said she's scared of me. I mean, I don't see what she sees, but maybe it's because I'm wearing your cologne." So yeah, very straightforward and very mature language for 17-year-old Billie. Moving on to track 6, Wish You Were Gay. Billie is very honest about her selfishly strong romantic feelings and the sensitivity of her ego on this song. She says, "I just want to make you feel okay, but all you do is look the other way. I can't tell you how much I wish I didn't want to stay. I just kind of wish you were gay." But basically the perspective here is that she would prefer that her love interest either love her back or have a reason like sexual orientation for not being interested in her. It hurts her too much to imagine that she is the problem. And then on Listen Before I Go, she is very straightforward about what seems to be suicide. It's definitely a hard thing to think that a 17-year-old was thinking. But on the outro, she says, "Call my friends and tell them that I love them and I'll miss them, but I'm not sorry." So, whew. Yeah, that's a tough one. This is not the kind of bluntness that we want a 17-year-old having. But of course, we're happy that she can talk about her feelings. And that's it for that trait. So moving on to trait number 2, we have romantic idealism, and that comes from Billie's Sagittarius Venus in the 9th house. Starting with Don't Smile at Me. Again, I want to talk about Hostage. I know we already talked about it, but this album is super brief, so there's not a whole lot of songs to pick from. In verse 1, she says, I want to be alone with you, I want to steal your soul and hide you in my treasure chest. And then in verse 2, she says, nothing hurts when you're with me and we're alone. Billie wants a love where it's just the two of them against the world with lots of alone time between them. So that's the ideal that she is chasing for this relationship. And that's really the only song on this little album that touches on this topic that Billie is credited on as a writer. So moving to the album, track 8, also called 8, is a song about getting carried away by romantic idealism. She says, I came committed, guess I overdid it, wore my heart out on a chain around my neck, but now it's missing. And then on track 11, Ilo Milo. Ilo Milo? Ilo Milo? I forgot. I knew at some point, and I forgot now. Anyways, the bridge says, I tried not to upset you, let you rescue me the day I met you. I just wanted to protect you, but now I'll never get to. And then we have the chorus, which undergoes subtle lyrical changes with each repetition, with the outro version saying, I don't want to be lonely, was hoping you'd come home, I don't care if it's a lie. So Billie's feelings are so strong that she can and will see past anything to protect her love interest and her connection to them. I Love You is another song that shows how Billie will put all, even logic, behind her to keep her love. On verse 2, she says, maybe we should just try to tell ourselves a good lie. And then on the outro, she says, we fall apart as it gets dark. I'm in your arms in Central Park. There's nothing you could do or say. I can't escape the way I love you. So yeah, very much not interested in letting anything hold her back from this romance that she wants to pursue. And our third and final trait, we're getting through them pretty quickly today just because we don't have a huge discography to work with. But our third and final trait is secretive darkness, and that comes from Billie's 12th house stellium. Darkness is huge in Billie's sound and lyrics. It's practically synonymous with her name, and probably one of the more prominent traits that we think of when we hear Billie's voice or her name. On Don't Smile at Me, we just have one good example of this where, again, Billie is credited, which is track 2, I Don't Want to Be You Anymore. This song is heartbreaking, again, especially coming from a 15-year-old. It touches on her insecurities and her tumultuous relationship with herself. On the chorus, she says, tell the mirror what you know she's heard before. I don't want to be you anymore. And then on verse 2, she says, hands getting cold, losing feeling is getting old. Was I made from a broken mold? Hurt I can't shake. We've made every mistake. Only you know the way that I break. The we's and you's in this song are all referring to herself. So not only are these dark feelings we're discussing, they're also lonely thoughts that only she truly understands. No matter how well she describes it to us, we'll never really understand exactly how she feels about that, which does add to the element of that secretiveness as well as the darkness. And then moving on for the last time to the album, All the Good Girls Go to Hell is actually a song about climate change, which I didn't know the first time listening to it, but now that I know that, that is it's just such a good metaphor. Anyways, the post-chorus before the outro says, my Lucifer is lonely, and this is repeated throughout the song, and basically means that where some people have a metaphorical devil and angel on their shoulders, Billie just has a devil. So her devil's lonely and single-handedly piloting her through her decisions. And then she also says in the song, "There's nothing left to save now, my God is gonna owe me," which backs up the cynical theme of climate change-induced doom that makes this track so dark. And then back to "Wish You Were Gay," Billie describes romantic rejection on this song, saying, "I laugh along like nothing's wrong, 4 days has never felt so long." So she's lonely here, which is a 12th house theme, but of course this is a very melancholy feeling that she's keeping to herself. And then finally, "Bury a Friend" is written from the perspective of the monster under Billie's bed, which she also says is her. So to be clear, Billie is the monster under her own bed because she is her own worst enemy. The concept of burying a friend is also extremely dark in itself. Most of the lyrics on this song are dark, and I'm not going to read the whole song out to you. But some lowlights include, in verse 1, "Today I'm thinking about the things that are deadly, the way I'm drinking you down like I want to drown, like I want to end me." And then in verse 2, she says, "Keep you in the dark, what had you expected?" And then later, "It's probably something that shouldn't be said out loud. Honestly, I thought that I would be dead by now," which also touches on secretiveness. She doesn't feel like she should be forthcoming about perhaps suicidal feelings, or just not thinking that she would be alive at this point. And of course, very dark as well. And that's really it for this one. So thank you so much for watching. Again, feel free to give us a subscribe and let me know in the comments who you want to learn about next. And thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful day.